Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Today is a special episode because it is a nonprofit thought leader episode, and we have Sabrina Walker Hernandez with us today. Sabrina is the CEO of Supporting World Hope, and she is going to share with us the secrets of successful leaders. So make sure you stay with us for the entirety because Sabrina has a lot of wisdom to share with us. But before we dive into the conversation, we of course want to make sure that you know who we are as well. Julia Patrick joins us. She is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy and the mastermind behind the Nonprofit Show. So thank you to Julia for creating this wonderful opportunity for all of us. I'm Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group, and I am grateful to serve alongside Julia as the co-host of the Nonprofit Show, going on 400 episodes strong, and really excited to continue these thought leader conversations because of our sponsors. We are so grateful and have a deep appreciation for each and every one of these companies. They exist to help you do more good. And they really do have, this base, this solid core to help you move your mission forward in your communities to help solve your community issues. So if you have not checked them out, make sure you do. They're phenomenal companies, phenomenal leaders. And one of them, Bloomerang, is also a sponsor for Sabrina coming up with her summit that we're going to hear a little bit more about. So let's jump into this conversation. Sabrina, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here. I always love sitting down, talking to you lovely ladies. We all have opinions and you allow me to voice mine.
You know what? I think that's why we were so attracted to you as a thought leader, because this is the thing. It's really frightening to sometimes tell the hard truth. And we don't all have to agree, but I think we need to hear some of these messages, and it's really hard. But one of the things that I loved about you before I ever even met you was I loved the name of your business, Supporting World Hope, because to me, when I heard that, it gave me a frame that I put around my imaginary picture of you. And I thought Supporting World Hope was like the coolest thing. Because at the end of the day, we hope better things. And that's why we're invested in the nonprofit sector. I think, Jarrett, I don't know about you, but to me, it's like really a basic direction that we all take.
It is. And I also was attracted to that name. It's very grandiose. I remember my mom would say oh, you want to save the world. And I'm like, yeah, I do. We have world hope. And I'm so glad that there are more of us out there. Sabrina, it's always a compliment, but I love meeting fellow nerds. So yes. That's always wonderful. Well, let's dive into this. Truly, what are the secrets of successful leaders? And I'm curious if we can start by truly, with this S word, stewardship. How do you define stewardship, and what does that mean for us as organizational leaders?
Well, I define stewardship as, for me, I look at the fundraising process, and stewardship is a major part of the fundraising process. For me, it's 15% of the fundraising process. It's how you really recognize and thank your donors and share the impact of your nonprofit with them. I think that nonprofits, we often do not so good of a job with stewardship. I don't know why, because we are the world people, we are the heart people, but we don't necessarily do a great job with stewardship. We don't do a great job at telling our donors thank you. And sometimes I think it's a mindset thing. I think you think, okay, I got the gift. Now I'm not going to bother them anymore. And so I'm not going to communicate, and I'll just wait. And from the donor end, it's like, you got my money. And then you didn't do anything. You didn't tell me what happened with it. You didn't share. I may got a thank you card, and it was a stock card, not a personalized card. And then you're going to come back to me like 12 months later and ask me to reinvest. I think we need to be more intentional around stewardship. It really will make a difference in donor retention.
So I've never heard that statistic of 15%. So that, and I saw Julia do it too, because we love numbers. Yeah, we love numbers. And I have a feeling this question will come up on one of our Friday Ask and Answers, which things like this typically do. So 15% is really that focus on stewardship. And you're saying that organizations do way less than that?
They do way less than that. And I will be the first to say it's a lesson that I've learned the hard way as well. You get the gift, like I say, you get that gift and you're so busy, right? And that you're sitting in that nonprofit seat and the gift comes in. And if you don't have a system in place to acknowledge that gift, you will forget and it'll be a month. And then you'll sit there and you go, well, now is it too late to say thank you? And
it's a little embarrassing.
It's a little embarrassing. And then you kind of put it off. And then before you realize it, it's 6 months down the road. You never said thank you. You never shared any impact. And the donor, you're going to lose the donor because you haven't shared a thank you. Here's another statistic for you. 85% of first-time givers do not give a repeat gift because they were not thanked.
Wow, 85% of first-time givers will not give again because they were not properly thanked.
Yes. And it's simple. It's a simple way. And they say the common practice or best practice, I don't know if you like to use that word best practice, but a best practice is that a donor receives a thank you within 24 to 48 hours. And people kind of get overwhelmed by that. Like, how am I supposed to do that? Right. And so I had a very simple system, very practical system. And I want to share this with people because I want them to steal it. At the end, yes, please steal it, at the board meetings, I would put a script together, a thank you script, right? I pass that thank you script out with an ink pen, and I would pass out our note cards, and I would have each board member write a thank you note. They didn't address it to anyone. They just wrote that script out and signed their name. And then I would collect those and I would put them on my desk. And when a gift came through, I would just add the name, sign my name as a CEO, put it in an envelope and mail it out. Mm-hmm. And I did that for every board member. Now, from the board member's perspective, why do we have to do this every board meeting? Probably, but they're been a part of the fundraising process because they're doing stewardship. And that's very key. Again, it's 15% of that process. And so that's what I would do to kind of minimize the pressure, right? That was one way. And because I was in youth services, now I know that's an advantage being in youth service. I get that. The other thing that I would do is I would have the kids write thank you cards as well, with all the misspellings, with everything. I didn't try to writing, all of that. I did not try. Somebody said, "You're going to send that out and it's spelled." I said, "It just proves we need more education." Right. Yes, we're going to send that out. Right, we're going to send that out. So I would have a stock of those too.
That is brilliant. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more then about the board and how they play a role in the success of the leadership. And I'm curious if you have, some ideas maybe of where our board is falling short.
So I think our board falls short. Some very clear things that I wanted to talk about around this topic. One is it's a privilege to serve on the board.
Yes.
So let's start there first, coming in with the mentality that it is a privilege. You are on this board to, provide the community with a needed program or access to a needed service. So it's not a burden to serve on a board, it's a privilege. And that's one. But when you are invited to serve on the board, one of the biggest fails, I think, is a lot of people check their business hat at the door. It's some things that board members will do in a nonprofit that they would never allow to have done in their business. Right. And I don't understand it because a nonprofit is a business. It is a not-for-profit business, and you still run it like a business if you want it to be successful. So do not check your business hat at the door. It's certain things like you would never, let's say you would never scale back on marketing in your for-profit business because you understand that in order to bring in revenue, you have to invest in marketing, right? Or you would never tell a nonprofit, your for-profit, about the client experience or the customer experience. You would try to make that as fluid as possible, because that's what's going to bring continued business back to your business. And so don't check that business hat at the door. So, and a lot of board members think, well, I don't need board education, or, it's a nonprofit, I got this. But if you ask them 3 questions, most board members are going to get them wrong. The 3 questions I ask are, what is your nonprofit operating budget, even within $25,000? Can you tell me that? Another one I always ask is, what are the top 3 funding sources for the nonprofit?
Okay.
And then the third one I ask is, what are the top programs for the nonprofit? Most board members can't answer those. And that just shows that they need the education around what the nonprofit is. And you would not go into your business not knowing who your top clients were. You would not go into your business not knowing what your budget, is. It's just not what you wouldn't do it, right? And so it's the same concept with the nonprofit. It's amazing because at the end of the day, you are, as a board member, responsible for that nonprofit.
Yeah.
And
I almost think it's almost like something you could do this almost like part of the mission moment, where you have a mission moment that is generally more emotional storytelling to help build engagement, but you could turn it into like a fast fact. Fast fact for the meeting is, we get our top 3 funding, sources are this, or, because I agree with you. I think that on so many things, but just that basic knowledge of where the organization is working and how they're doing it. I agree. I think board members fall short on that.
Yeah, they tend to fall short on it. And maybe it's through no fault of their own. Sometimes CEO kind of holds that information close to.
Yes.
But if I am a board member and I am responsible for this organization, then you need to know those things, and you need to it's okay to ask questions when you're in a board meeting as well. A lot of people get in the board meetings and it's just the CEO that's talking. Well,
right.
That's not a sign of a good board. You
need to red flag.
It's a red flag. You need to be engaged as a board member. You need to know what's going on. And it's a boring meeting. First of all, that's just so boring to sit there and listen to a talking head tell you, and you're regurgitating, you're regurgitating information that has happened. I would love for boards to embrace that, the concept of being strategic and visionary, and focusing their board meetings on the goals that's a part of the strategic plan. I would, if we have an hour and a half, this is what I say for a productive meeting, I want 45 minutes of that meeting to talk about, what are our strategic goals and where we headed. I want the board meeting to be designed around that, not necessarily, oh, this is a committee report and this is what we did, and that's not effective use of a person's time.
Yeah. So really using their business mindset, right? So engage them with their business hat on so that they don't check it at the door, and have them, what I'm hearing you say, Sabrina, is really tapping into their own thought leadership on where they can help to see the organization maybe go and grow. We all know it's been some trying times over these last couple of years, and we are still facing some unknowns. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to talk about in these, board conversations. I've seen recently, actually the attendance of board, leaders decline. So whether it's an in-person meeting or a hybrid, right? Because there's still a lot of meetings being done simply virtually, or maybe some are having this hybrid. I'm seeing some organizations, in particular with their board leadership, fail merely by the lack of attendance.
Mhm.
Are you seeing that?
I see that. I see COVID as a blessing and a curse. Okay. The blessing is when COVID or the pandemic first hit, boards were a little bit more engaged because, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to navigate this? They understood the impact it was going to have on the budget. They understood the impact that it may have on program, especially if people came to your facility. So they actually came together to talk about those things, which I think all board meetings should be like that. But I digress. And now they feel like, okay, we've gone through that. We can step back again. You need to keep that same engagement because you just tackled a huge problem. Now, imagine if you take that same energy on the next, let's say not pandemic, but the next strategic goal 1 in your strategic plan, and take that same energy of tackling that. Then you're going to advance the organization. But to your question about attendance, yes, but I think that it's about accountability as well. So if people, this is a little thing I was taught about, people, board members who start to get disengaged, there's a process, right? So hopefully, the board chair, which I say the board chair is the gatekeeper to the board and the CEO is the gatekeeper to the staff. So I think the CEO, has a conversation with the board chair and say, attendance is beginning to be an issue, and identify those that attendance is an issue. And the board chair perhaps picks up the phone and have an informal conversation with that board member to say, are you still interested? Do you still want to be a part of this? And, just reiterate that is important for attendance, because without attendance, you don't have quorum. And without quorum, you can't get minutes passed, and not even just minutes. That's just basic. You can't get maybe grant approvals passed. You can't get your budget approved. It's a lot of things that come with active participation. And one of the things that we did in our board packet, which is another tip that some might want to use, is we included a roster at the beginning of every board packet. And it had, every board member name going across, and then down the side, it had all the board meeting dates. And we put A for absent, P for present. And so everybody got to see everyone's engagement. But not only that, we were very strategic about using our bylaws and, making them aware that the bylaw says if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, that the board can vote you off. Now that works, but you also get those board members, I always had them, that will miss 2 meetings, and then they'll come back for the 3rd one. And then so you have to be aware of that too. But the conversation starts with the board chair talking to those people and making sure, they still want to be a part of this, and realizing their importance to the process.
And back to what you said, Sabrina, it's that accountability. And so truly having the board chair, and what I find to be true is that peer to peer, right? So the board chair really holding the rest of the members accountable. And let's move into the accountability when it comes to like building our own talents and skills. And I'm curious if you can share with us how that relates to the organization. And I'm curious if it relates to the staff as well as the board equally.
I think it relates to the staff and as well as the board equally, because again, if you want a dynamic board, you have to invest in their education as well, whether that's them, attending webinars, whether that's attending national conferences, whatever it is. I know with my organization, we invested I had like a $2.5 million budget. So we invested about $35,000 a year in development for the staff and for the board. There was just certain things that we knew that didn't matter, that our staff was going to attend, For us, we call them regional conferences or national conference. And we also had, if they had a particular issue, like some people just don't play well in the sandbox with others, we would look for a training that would help them, with conflict resolution. You cannot expect people to change their behaviors or increase their skill set if you don't provide them with training. Yeah. And so it was very important to do that. It really made a huge impact with our board because sometimes, and I guess that's with any board and staff, sometimes you can get so caught up in your local dynamics and your local problems and think that you're so unique and this is, only you're struggling with this. And, how many times have I heard, our nonprofit is very unique. No, you're not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You just feel unique because you haven't gotten out there. You need to get involved with, go to a national conference, go and surround yourself, because what will happen is you'll discover that this organization has the same issue and this is how they dealt with it. Or, we're not as unique as we thought. There's still struggles. Even let's say you get to a $10 million budget, or you're at a $250,000 budget or a $25,000 budget. The struggles are still the same, just at a different level. So I've been to a conference where the $10 million, organization talk about, their struggle and how poor they are. And I'm looking at them like, you do realize you have a $10 million budget, and I'm coming in here and I like
several more zeros than others.
Right. But they talk about the same struggles. They talk about, engaging their board. They talk about, donor relations. They talk about the lack of fundraising. And so when you get out, and get into those atmospheres, you realize that you're not alone. Your organization is not alone. And one of the things that I really am going to encourage CEOs to do is to educate themselves around the nonprofit spectrum, because if you do that, then you will be able to, engage your board more. You'll be able to interact and grab the best from them, and grab the best from your staff as well, because sometimes we do things because this is the way they've always been done. And that's not good enough. It really, especially if you're trying to address, world issues, that's just not good enough. You need to get out and you need to see how other people are doing it. How are you going to advance your board if you are stuck in a limited mindset?
So one of the things you said before we dove into this really robust episode and conversation, Sabrina, is you talked about this pyramid, and there are three key issues or three key areas that every organization, regardless of size, truly struggles with. And when we talk about getting out of our own local space, I know you have a summit coming up later this month, and you are talking about these three main areas. What were those?
The three main areas are a board. That's the foundation. You got to have a good board. You got to have a strong board. And then you have fundraising and you have marketing. And that is going to be the perfect pyramid for your organization, regardless of the size of it. You got to start with the base, with the board. You gotta market, and you have to fundraise and all of these things assist each other. If you have a great board, they are on it with the fundraising, they're marketing, they're being ambassadors out there, they're being advocates for your organization. They are not afraid to fundraise. What I have learned over the course of time is fundraising becomes easier when people think or have the perception that you are a successful organization. And how do you get that perception of success is you market your organization. You are out there. You're in the newspaper. People don't read the newspaper anymore. Yes, they do. The donors read the newspapers. The donors that you want, read newspapers. Okay. So getting in the newspaper, being in television, getting on the radio, getting proclamations at your city council government. Those are all free and easy to do. And then that builds and lends to, fundraising. It's so much easier to ask for money when people say, oh yeah, I did see y'all in the newspaper. Oh yeah, I did see you, you did this interview, and they feel more confident in investing in your organization.
Well, people want to be a part of a winning team, right? Yes. And I think Julia might have said that before, but people really do want to be a part of a winning team. Yes. I would love, we don't have much time, but I would love for you to share about your Building a Thriving Nonprofit Summit. It's coming up in 3 days. So if you could close us out, Sabrina, with telling us a little bit about this, what we can expect, where we can register, all the goods.
Yeah, girl, 3 days. Woo, that's the first time that's been, solidified for me. Yes. So it's October the 26th through the 29th. And basically it's going to start at 10 a.m. in the morning and end at 1:15. And I'm very excited because I try to do 10 a.m. to catch all the coasts. Right. And all the timelines, but I'm very excited because each day, again, we're bringing in a specialist that is going to talk about board, that's going to talk about fundraising, and that's going to talk about marketing. And then we're going to end the day with a panel discussion. And the panel discussions are going to be great. They're going to be lessons from the field, which is going to be Tuesday through Thursday. And basically what I've done is identify some successful CEOs in the field who are, knocking it out of the park right now around fundraising, around marketing, and around the do's and don'ts of board, dealing with the board. So it's not me saying, 3 years ago when I was a CEO, this is what I did. It's people who are actually engaged and being successful now. And then on the last day, because of the pandemic and because we still, people think we're out of this, but we're not. So there's still some things that are being impacted, and we have to decide as an industry, are we going to go back to, I love in-person events. I do. But I think that there's some room for hybrid events. I think that nonprofits have found out, some who did it very well raised more money online than they did in an in-person event. But seems to me like they're all still racing to go back in person, which makes no sense. So anyway, Jared, you're going to be talking on that panel to give us some pointers around that. And I know that's a huge topic of conversation that I would love to have, because I'm like, why is everybody rushing back to these in-person events? It was less costly to do an online event and you raised more, but sometimes again, we do things because that's the way we've always done. Well, I am looking forward to nerding out on that panel. There are several guests at the summit that you have lined up that have also been guests here of the Nonprofit Show. So we are thrilled to see these leaders again, to continue to be of service throughout the nation. So this is a wonderful educational opportunity for CEOs, for board members, for staff. So when you are looking to build your own talents and skills and maybe get out of your little bubble, I hope that you will join me at the summit. Sabrina, this has been fantastic. You are a breath of fresh air. We are so grateful that you joined us today as the nonprofit thought leader. If you enjoyed Sabrina and all of her expertise, please check her out. Supportingworldhope.com is her website. She's a fantastic consultant here in our sector, and we are so grateful to have you on here for today's show. Thank you.
It's been great. I love your website. I think it has some really interesting connecting points. It definitely will get you through to the conference, which tell me what the cost of being a participant is. So the initial cost of the conference is free, but you can upgrade to a paid VIP backstage pass, which is $97. And what that $97 is going to get you is access to the Zoom room. You're going to have lifetime access to all the recordings. You're going to get transcript. You're going to get a grant writing class with one of my very good friends, Felipe Salinas, who
writes $1 million grants. He worked for the university. You will get a post training with me. I'll be talking about creating a culture of philanthropy. You're also going to get access to some membership, some discounts. Jared is doing something. So it's like a swag bag worth $5,400 of items. It's going to be, it's awesome.
$97. So the return on that is quite large.
Yeah.
Sabrina was very generous in asking, if there was anything that we would be willing to share. So I think it's phenomenal. I wish you the best. I know I have a very small role in the summit, but I'm looking forward to that and grateful for the invitation.
Yes. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Next year, you're going to be on there. I'm just telling you.
I will. I would have done it in a heartbeat, but I'm telling you, I have another speaking gig during that time. And so it's just been crazy. Wow. I always love Sabrina. I love your energy. I learned something new. Of course, I have eyeglass envy.
Yes.
I'm just witnessing to that. Here's Sabrina's information. She truly is a thought leader, and we hope that you reach out. Hey, this has been another great opportunity for my dear co-host, Jarrett Ransom, and myself to learn and to be inspired. And we hope you found that today with us on another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors who've been here through thick and thin, getting these messages out and supporting the work of the 1.8 million nonprofits across this country. It is an amazing, amazing thing. Hey, building a thriving nonprofit summit. Don't miss this opportunity. It's going to be really exciting. And I think that you're going to be inspired to really tackle some of the big issues. This is a critical time in the nonprofit sector. We are coming up at the finish line. And so we need to finish strong and then start back out strong January 1. So, wow. Thank you so much, Sabrina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for always being inclusive. And I just really appreciate the both of you.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful. As we like to remind everyone every day, stay well so you can do well. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and we'll see you at the summit.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.